Thank you to Bokksu for sponsoring today's episode. Bokksu is a premium Japanese snack box that works with family businesses all over Japan to deliver a new theme of authentic treats every month. This month's theme is all about cherry blossoms, and I'm already loving the taste and look of these snacks, especially some of the mochi, the rice crackers, these spicy savory puffs, and this cream sandwich. Head to the link in my description and use code ALVIN at checkout to get $15 off your next Bokksu order.
なんだよこの料理。
これ食えんのか。
生臭そう。
くそ。嫌なら食うなよエルディアジ。お前らなんかに食わせてやる。
Hello there, welcome back to another episode of Anime with Alvin. Today, I'll be attempting to recreate the massive seafood feast cooked by Nicolo in Attack on Titan. We're only able to see the entire spread for a few seconds in the show, but from what I've gathered, this involves quite a different variety of seafood, including scallops, mussels, clams, shrimp, salmon, and of course, lobster. Let's get started. A lot of the dishes in this feast seem to incorporate much garlic and shallot. So to make sure that we have enough, I'm mincing up one whole entire head of garlic and thinly slicing one shallot. This will be the base for many of the dishes to come. The first dish I'm starting on is a mussel dish that seems to be in a tomato or red sauce base. So in a large pan over medium heat, I'm cooking 2 tablespoons of our chopped garlic, half of the shallot, and about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, letting them hang out in there until they start to sweat, and adding in half a teaspoon of chili flakes. Once the chili has released their nice flavors and colors into the oil, in goes 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. It needs to be cooked out so that the rawness doesn't stay in. This gets deglazed with a 1/4 cup of dry vermouth, followed by a cup of crushed tomatoes, seasoned to taste with salt, which in this case was about half a tablespoon. Once everybody's having a good time in the sauce, in goes 1.5 pounds of mussels, freshly acquired from a local seafood purveyor. After a good stir, this goes to simmer and hang out for another 5 minutes, just until the mussels have started to open up. The second dish we're working on looks like a variation on clams casino, in this case scallops casino, a very delicious baked seafood dish that involves cheese and in this case breadcrumbs. To make our mixture, we're cooking the rest of the shallots and another 2 tablespoons of the garlic in 2 tablespoons of butter, sauteing just until fragrant and translucent, and then adding 2 tablespoons of flour. This is now followed by a half cup of whole milk, along with a 1/4 cup of white wine, and then brought to a boil while whisking the whole time. After about a minute or so, this gets removed from heat, and in goes 2 cups of bay scallops, which have been drained and patted dry, along with a half cup of grated mozzarella cheese. We don't really want to overcook this because this is going to finish cooking in the oven. Once this mixture has cooled, we have some beautiful scallop shells that we had to acquire separately, but will be a great vessel for which in our mixture will hang out. Each one gets packed with an even amount of this scallopy, cheesy mixture, and we move on to our breadcrumb topping. In a bowl, a cup of breadcrumbs gets combined with the rest of our mozzarella cheese and kneaded together so that the cheese can get evenly incorporated throughout the breadcrumbs, and evenly divided on top of each of our little scallop shells. Since we have a lot of food to get through, this will get cooked towards the end. Alright, moving on. One of the other dishes shown in this spread seems to be a yellow colored risotto that involves seafood. So we're gonna go with a risotto inspired rice dish. On top of this dish seems to rest a few scattered handfuls of small seared scallops and shrimp, so we're going to start with that first. In a medium saucepan, we're sauteing a half a pound of baby scallops in a tablespoon of butter. To get some nice color, we're also adding a half teaspoon of chili flakes. This is pretty quick because these scallops are really small. Once those have exited the pan, in go a pound of shrimp, shelled and deveined, but with their tails on as shown in the reference material. These get seasoned and seared until they've been barely cooked through and then removed. We have some really well-made store-bought fish stock that we're going to infuse with a few pinches of saffron for both flavor and to get that nice beautiful yellow color. To start our rice dish, we're cooking 1.5 cups of arborio rice in the remaining flavor in the pan, along with another tablespoon of butter until the edges of each grain of rice have started to become translucent. To cook this rice, we're ladling in a ladleful or 2 of the stock, a bit at a time until that the rice has enough time to absorb it and that it looks a little bit sticky, upon which we're going to add another ladleful. This process gets repeated until there is no stock left. And to finish, we're going to grate about half a cup of Parmesan cheese. Now I know seafood and cheese usually don't go together well, but in the seafood risotto we made for one piece, the Parmesan added a layer of flavor that we couldn't get without it. Once that's luxuriously mixed in and 2 tablespoons of butter are added to finish, a risotto inspired rice dish is ready. This gets mounted onto a plate and the seafood we seared earlier gets carefully arranged in a clockwise pattern. There's also mussels on this, so we're going to borrow a few from that dish we made earlier for this one. But wait, there's more food. 2 pasta dishes to be exact. So in a large pot of boiling water, we are heavily seasoning it with salt and cooking cooking a pound of linguine and a pound of penne. Pretty standard, just according to package instructions, but minus 2 minutes because they're going to be cooked in sauce. The show visually hints that this is clams, linguine, and some sort of penne pasta with salmon. To prep our salmon, we have a 1 pound fillet that we're going to take the skin off, making an incision towards the short end of the salmon and trying to pull through with a thin boning knife. The skinless fillet gets cubed up and sent to a hot pan, seared in some olive oil and salt until barely cooked and removed. Prep our clams for the linguine. We need to get as much of the grit and sand out of them as possible. So in a large stainless steel mixing bowl, in goes a heavy handful of salt with some hot water just enough to dissolve, and diluted with enough cold water to cover 1.5 pounds of clams. This helps the clams expel any grit, sand, or stuff that they have inside that would not be fun to eat afterwards. We're gonna let this sit for about 30 minutes just to give them enough time to do their thing. But in the meantime, we can get started with the rest of the sauce. In a large pan over medium heat, we're cooking the remaining 2 tablespoons of minced garlic along with half a shallot and a half teaspoon of chili flake, just until aromatic, and then searing a pound of shrimp. Because in the show, there is clearly shrimp on top of the clam pasta. Quick sear, these exit the pan, and to deglaze, a half cup of white wine and a half cup of seafood stock, scraping the bottom of the pan to release all the fond and the good stuff back in. Then in goes the 1.5 pounds of the clams that have now been degritted, and we'll cook in this mixture for about 10 to 15 minutes on low heat just until they've opened up. Onto the cream sauce. Into a medium saucepan goes 8 ounces of mascarpone cheese, which gets slowly melted over low heat, followed by the zest and juice of 1 whole lemon. Once the inevitable seeds that fell in get taken out, 2 cups of frozen peas or freshly cooked peas go straight in. Those seem to be those green circular bits in the pasta from the show. Our previously seared salmon returns to the pan to join the party, and we're gonna let that hang out off heat just until we're ready to mix the pasta. Our clams have opened up at this point and have started to say hello, so we're gonna take those out, and in the remaining sauce and liquid, toss in all of our cooked linguine. Right at the last second, we return our previously seared shrimp and those clams back into the pasta. Same goes with the cooked penne, back into our cream sauce with salmon and peas. Since we're about to serve, our scallops now go under a low broiler for about 5 minutes. All that's left is the star of the show, the lobster. We have acquired a beautiful fresh 3-pound lobster. In order to maintain its structural integrity after it cooks, we're going to stick a wooden skewer down each side of its tail to hold it straight. This gets plunged into a pot of salted boiling water for about 3 minutes. 3 for the head side, 3 for the tail side, because this does not fit entirely in the pot. Once the shell has done its magic trick of turning it into a beautiful orange color, this gets removed right onto a soft and copious bed of romaine lettuce. And right next to it, just a lemon wedge or 2. To finish plating and garnishing our seafood risotto-like inspired dish, it's a couple of sprigs of spring onion, followed by a nice parsley sprig right in the middle. Our pastas get plated up with extra seafood from the dish right on top, just for presentation purposes. The clams linguine does get a sprinkling of parsley and 1 really nice looking basil sprig on top. Scallops have emerged from the oven, golden brown, crispy, with the breadcrumb topping and cheese nice and bubbly. These seem to get finished with some dehydrated shrimp and a few parsley leaves in the show. The mussels get plopped down right into a large plate with the rim and a little green parsley on top as well. Why not? I present to you our version of Niccolo's seafood feast from Attack on Titan. Starting on the left, we have our risotto-inspired seafood dish with shrimp and saffron, our scallops casino-like dish, mussels in a tomato sauce, clams linguine with shrimp, a whole boiled lobster, finally a creamy seafood pasta with salmon and frozen peas. Let's start with the lobster. Yeah, I definitely undercooked this. It needed 2 more minutes on each side, which brings the total up to about 10 minutes or so. I've been actually waiting to try the scallops for this entire time. The crunch on top, the cheesiness goes well with that beautiful juicy seafood on the bottom. Let's dig into some mussels here. Ooh, this tomato sauce, that's my favorite part of this dish. The risotto has been sitting for a little bit, so not as sticky and gooey and delicious as it should be. We do have a lot of food, so let's invite the crew to hang out. Oh, here comes Andrew. Overall, gotta say, have a lot of respect with restaurants that serve a lot of seafood dishes. The timing window for its deliciousness is very tricky, and definitely have missed it by a lot of these dishes from sitting out from making 6 of them. However, we did cook up a feast, which means we need to feed a lot of people. And for someone like Sasha, who's never seen seafood, let alone the ocean before, I can see why this would be a memorable experience. Thanks again to our friends at Boksu for supporting this episode. Japanese snacks are on a whole nother level, so it's pretty cool to experience the real authentic stuff at home. This month's theme is Sakura's Story, a limited edition collection celebrating the famous cherry blossom season in Japan. Some of my favorites were the mochi, the rice crackers, the savory fried puffs, and the rice cracker cream sandwich. It even comes with a little culture guide that tells you more about the theme, the flavors, and where the snacks come from. If you want to experience Sakura season from home and support our channel, click the link in the description and use code ALVIN at checkout for $15 off your order.